not have been made. The one thing you have to remember is when you're ahead in the ball game, you do not make mistakes. You do not help the other team score runs. Make them earn everything. Now, he takes the out at first base, and if he doesn't have a clear shot at throwing to the plate, then you don't make the throw. It's like on a double play. If you don't have a chance to get the runner at first base, why throw the ball?
In other words, when he caught the ball, he should have taken a step one side or the other.
One side or the other. I believe that he should have come to the plate all the way, but you've got to take a step inside to throw to the plate.
Step inside,
and then fire.
Don't worry about the tag at first and make your throw.
Get that guy. Because if the runner is in your way, then that tells the umpire that the runner was running out of the baseline, and you'll get the automatic out. The runner has to be running on the outside of the foul line.
Collins blown away by Mike Perez. 2 down.
We'll take another quick look at the play. Watch and see if the runner is running outside of the line. He's outside of the line. He's outside of the line. He veers out even more. But Ricky, because he was on the outside of the foul line, he was indirect. The runner was indirectly between him and the catcher.
So if he takes a step into fair ground,
he's got a clear shot. And that's one of the things they teach you at that position. But it's very easy from up here, John.
Here is John Kruk. He's grounded to short, grounded to second, and been called out on strikes. Only 8 times out of his previous 52 games has he had no hits at all in the game.
And the longest he's gone is 0 for 6.
Well, he was trying to tie it up, which is not a bad idea.
I think it's a great idea. He knows that he can hit with 2 strikes. He's not afraid to hit from 2 strikes in the count. He's ahead in the count, 2 balls and 1 strike. He gets his fastball and he takes the shot at it. Only problem was it was a good sinker from Perez.
Perez has been tough. The outfield backed up straight away. Wastes one. 1 ball, 2 strikes now to John Kruk. Now, he's only hit 4 home runs so far this year, but last year he hit 21.
Well, he knows that he can hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Yeah. 21 led the club in home runs a year ago. Pena throws him out. We've got Smith, Jose, and Galarraga coming up.
Years ago, the Charles Sweeney pitching for Providence became the first pitcher to strike out 19 in a game. Imagine how many Carlson may have had if he had the same advantage, but the mound was only 50 feet away.
And here's Ozzie Smith leading off in the 8th inning. 3-2. The Cardinals lead the Phils, and Ozzie fouls one off. Cardinals with that 2-run 7th inning rally. Does that seem sort of like vintage?
Yes.
Cardinal baseball there to you?
Chopper here, chopper there, using your speed. Worked out very well.
I mean, Brad Brink. He made some great pitches. Nobody hit the ball real hard.
The only mistake he made was not covering first base. If he would have gotten to first base quickly enough, he may have saved himself those 2 runs.
It also might have been able to throw out Zeal in that bunt.
Right.
A little quicker reaction. He's thrown 101 pitches. 3 strikeouts, only 1 walk. Foul off the left field line. 2-2 to Ozzie Smith. 2,000 hits for Ozzie. And around Memorial Day, I was in St. Louis, and Ozzie was just so proud that he was approaching that figure.
He should be.
He's a man who's worked hard for everything he's got in baseball. There's a base hit. 2,000 and counting. His first hit of the game, hit number 8 for St. Louis.
If you would have seen Ozzie Smith when he first came to the major leagues, you would never bet in the 100 years that he'd get 2,000 hits. He's really worked hard to become a good player and a proficient, hitter. So fastball starts to tail away. It tails to the middle of the plate out, and he just lines it to left field. He's got a little short, kind of hack at the ball. Watch, it just turns his hands over right there and lines it in the left center field.
Ozzie's last 3 years with the San Diego Padres. Before he went to St. Louis, he hit .211, .230, and .222. I mean, his best year of those 3 was .230. 2,000 hits later. That's it for Brink. We'll be back. Out. And here is Barry Jones, a right-hander, on to face Felix Jose. Jose 1 for 3 in the game. Barry Jones, this is a guy that every staff likes to have, a guy who can work all the time. Last year, He was in 77 games while with the Montreal Expos, and that led the National League.
Well, the problem is the statistic that tells us most about Barry there is he's had 33 innings pitched, 40 base hits given up. That's a lot of hits given up, because normally when he comes in, he's going to be in trouble already. As he is now, he's going to inherit a runner. As you take a look at Brink.
Awfully close at first. Ozzie called save by Kellogg. The crowd wasn't so sure, and neither was Jordan.
Ozzie dives back. And Jordan thinks he has his glove on him before Ozzie gets to the bag. And I'd have to agree with him. But what happens is he tags him on the shoulder. Therefore, the umpire is saying that he had his hand underneath quickly enough.
Yeah, it's too low. A sinker from Jones. 2 balls, no strikes to Felix Jose. Galarraga is on deck.
Jones seems to be throwing harder than I remembered him last year, John. He seems to have a little more pop on the fastball.
I mentioned he's given up those 40 hits in 33 innings, and he's walked more hitters than he struck out. 13 walks and only 11 strikeouts.
92-mile-an-hour sinker is a pretty good sinker.
Could be 2. Swing back to first. A double play.
Swain does everything so casually at shortstop. It would seem that you better start getting out of the way a little more here in the National League. I guarantee you that. Well, Ozzie Smith just doesn't go after him like he should. See, he just kind of relaxes right there. It's a 4 to 6 to 3 double play, but, you know, Ozzie is a little late getting there. But now, take a shot at him. See, Ozzie went right for the bag. But you'll have some guys that will not go for the bag.
2 down, nobody on. Here is Galarraga, and it is ball 1. Galarraga, who was a teammate of Barry Jones last year in Montreal. This is Jones's 27th appearance of this season. So he's on pace to be in 81 or 82 games again this year. And the count goes to 2-0. That the Phillies bullpen has not always been reliable. Brad Brink, who had that base runner on base, and now his night is truly finished. 7 innings plus, 3 runs, 2 of them earned, 8 hits. 3 strikeouts, just the 1 walk for the USC alumnus. Foul ball. 2-1.
Anyway you look at it, he did a good job of keeping his team in the ballgame and giving them an opportunity to win. He just made a couple of mistakes, and again, you know, sometimes those are, you know, mistakes are made because of inexperience. You know, he would have hustled and made a little quicker release on the ball that Zeal bunted. He never would have been in trouble at all. If he would have gotten to first base quick enough on the ground ball by Milt Thompson, there's 2 outs right there that he should have had with no runners on.
There's that sinker ball, 2-2. Now we have just seen Todd Worrell come walking in from the Cardinals bullpen. There he is. He's the setup man for Lee Smith. The 8th inning usually has been his time. Smith, the 9th inning belongs to him. Used to belong to Worrell. Deep right field. Crook is back. It's off the wall. He barehands the carry. Here's the throw. Sweep. The ball gets past Dale Swain. A double for Andres Galarraga.
And the big cat was lumbering there in the second base, and he barely made it. Nice play by Kruk in right field. Kruk goes back. He sees he can't get there. Now he gets it off the wall, barehands it, fires to second base, and he really has a shot at it. The ball short hops Swain and gets away from him. But Galarraga sliding in safely. Galarraga's going for 2 all the way, never slows down. And it was going to be pretty close play at second.
And that left-hander's tail on that throw. Here is Pedro Guerrero, 1 for 3. High in the air, right center, Dykstra. Kruk says, I want it. Lenny wisely avoids a collision. 3-2 Cards. Around, they won today, and Melito Perez got the win. The Blue Jays were beaten at Camden Yards down in Baltimore 7-1. Mike Messina. So I'm anxious for you to see him. He has really been something. There's a swinging strike. from Brian Jordan as he faces the new Cardinals pitcher, Todd Worrell. Bernard Gilkey now into the game in left field. He'll hit in the 9th spot. Worrell will hit in Guerrero's number 5 spot. And Gilkey, a very fine defensive player. Jordan 0 for 3. That slider low and away. Now, lately, the Cardinals have lost 8 out of 10. One of the problems has been the bullpen, which appears to be strong, deep, talented. But lately, they have been blowing leads. And Worrell blew one here Friday night when Darren Daulton hit a 3-run 8th-inning homer against him. Daulton is on deck tonight. 2-1.
And there's Darren Daulton as he gets his bat ready for battle in the on-deck circle.
Back to the screen. 2-2 to Jordan. There is Mitch Williams, the closer of the Phillies, warming up in the bullpen. The pitching spot, which is now Barry Jones, is due up 5th for the Phils in this inning.
I noticed you said Mitch Williams, not the Wild thing.
Hammered. On the run. That's going to go to the wall. Langford has to chase it. Jordan will stop at second with a stand-up double. And Daulton, the big gun, is coming up.
Well, as you mentioned, the Cardinals have not been able to put the Phillies away for the last 2 nights, and it starts off rough here for Todd Worrell. Gets a high fastball, and Jordan drives it in the right center. Langford runs it down. He does a good job of holding it to a double, and with no one out, Phillies have the tying run at second base.
The only time that Daulton has ever hit a home run against Worrell was Friday night. So here he is, and in this spot, he's probably just the man they'd like to have up there. He is hot.
Well, he needs to make sure he pulls the ball, first of all, to the right side. So if he doesn't get a base hit, he'll at least advance Ricky Jordan to third with 1 out.
Nobody out. Marsh, the rookie, on deck. Outside. He does not want to allow him to pull the ball.
Of course, Worrell is aware of that, and his ball really tails away from the left-handed hitter. So he should be able to, try to paint the outside corner. But what happens if Daulton is patient and he misses with a couple of pitches, then he has to give him something to hit that he can pull.
Daulton hitting .321 for the year now. Tied for the league lead in RBIs. He pulled it, got the runner to third. Whatever it takes these days, Daulton is getting it done. 1 out.
It doesn't matter whether they score this run or not. Daulton did what he's supposed to do, and that's good, sound, fundamental baseball.
Now Fregosi will go to his bench and bring up the veteran Wally Bachman to pinch hit for the rookie Marsh. With that possible tying run over at third base. 3-2. The Cardinals ahead last of the 8th inning. And there is Bachman, hitting .227 for the year. Mostly used as a pinch hitter. Spots like this, he is 4 for 16 as a pinch hitter. All of his RBIs have come in pinch hit roles. Former Met, the former Twin, the former Pirate, and now Wally Bachman with the Phillies. He is 2 for 4. The few chances he's had in his career against Worrell. The Cardinals infield comes in all the way at third base and first base, and most of the way at shortstop and second base. There's the diagram.
Because of AstroTurf, you don't have to be in quite as tight at short and second as you do on natural turf. One of the reasons that Zeal is in so tight is not so much to protect, for the play at the plate, but to protect against a squeeze, because Bachman is a good bunter, and you never know if Jim Fregosi wants to put the bunt on. Worrell is throwing hard.
Back to the screen, and it is 0-2. That first pitch we had clocked in our jugs gun at miles an hour.
That's awfully fast. I still want to check the gun because 98, 97 miles an hour, that's really up there. And he's throwing hard, but 98, 90 miles, that's faster than hard.
That's Ricky Jordan in the background. He's at third base. A possible tying run, and now Pagnazzi will go out and speak to Worrell. And, you know, Joe Morgan doesn't believe you throw 98 miles an hour.
He's probably also telling them to be aware now, because there's 2 strikes doesn't mean that they will not try to squeeze. He said, so, that's probably why he said I wanted to waste a pitch away, and Worrell probably didn't want to waste one. So he's going out to tell him why he wanted to call the pitch away, and, basically saying, hey, I know what I'm doing.
0-2 the count to Backman. Dale Swaim, a switch hitter, is on deck. Backman used to be a switch hitter, but now he only bats left-handed. The outfield is way around toward the left side. There's Jordan.
Every once in a while, you can get him to chase a high fastball out of the strike zone.
That was a high one into the hand, and he was able to get a piece of it, stay alive.
If you throw strikes, he's probably going to put it in play, but he will chase the high fastball every once in a while. This one is not quite up enough, but it's a good pitch. Ties him up inside.
There is how the Cardinals are playing it. You see the outfield, upper parts of your screen. The center fielder, Langford, way over to left center. The left fielder, Gilkey, almost near right on the line at left. Breaking ball. And he fouled that one away. Still 0-2. Why throw him a breaking ball when he hadn't caught up with that fastball?
Well, that's a good question, simply because Worrell's fastball really, his slider, I should say, is really kind of like that of a mediocre fastball, and there gives Backman a chance to get around on it. He probably was trying to make sure he got it down in the end to get him to chase a bad pitch, but he didn't get it down far enough.
I hear he throws that fastball 98 miles an hour.
Well, he's going to come with a fastball up and in again.
Down the left field line and back in amongst the spectators. Still 0-2.
Well, that one was probably about 97, huh? 96. See, now he's getting more in the area that I will believe. 95, 94, I'll believe that. And when you start getting up to 98 and in that area, I find it hard to believe, unless you're clocking Nolan Ryan and maybe Sandy Koufax, Ryan Duran.
You find it hard to believe. How about Wally Backman? 0-2 the count. 1-2 now.
Well, they're trying to go inside and tie him up.
See what the Phillies have done as a team. 295 with men in scoring position, but tonight their only runs have scored on the 2-run homer by Dalton. They have not had a single hit with a man in scoring position. Now the crowd starts to chant, Wally, Wally.
Well, they set him up inside. Now they're going to try the fastball away.
It was away but down. 2-2 the count. The veteran Wally Backman really battling it out here, and Jim Fregosi hoping that he's somehow able to get that run home. Torrey hoping that he'll at long last get that bullpen back in business here.
There are 2 ways to go about this if you're Todd Worrell. One, you try to keep the sinker down to get the ground ball to the infield. The other is I go upstairs with the fastball to try to strike him out.
That'll get the run home. And everybody's safe. A base hit from Backman. It's all tied up.
Well, as I said, there are 2 ways to approach it, and it was obvious that after a couple of pitches, they were going to try to keep the ball down. So they try to throw the sinker down to get the ground ball at one of your infielders. That would keep the runner from third scoring. Let's see, the target is down low. He gets the ball down, but Backman hits the top of the ball, and by the time it comes down, no chance to get the runner at the plate. Geronimo couldn't get out of his glove. He got out of his glove, but he couldn't get a good grip. By the time he did, Backman was at first base.
Now Dale Swaim. He's grounded out, flied out, and walked. 0 for his last 24. Base hit for Wally Backman and a run batted in. His 5th RBI of the year. All of them as a pinch hitter. 3-3. That was a swinging strike. 1 strike to count to Dale Swaim.
And we have to look back, as I said at the time, when Darren Dalton grounded the ball to the right side to move Ricky Jordan to third. That was an important play at that time. Of course, he would not have been able to score from second base on that chopper to Geronimo. In fact, he probably would have had Backman at first if he's playing back at normal position. But one of the risks you take when you bring the infield in is less range as an infielder. And if they chop the ball, you have a tough time getting back to it. So Dalton has done his job and been involved in all 3 of the Phillies' runs tonight.
Out of play off to the left by Swaim. 0-2 to count. Wally Backman, the runner at first, used to be a very fine base stealer. Stole as many as 32 bases in a season. Well, with the Mets a few years back, but he is now 32 years of age. Last year stole 3 bases. Has not yet even attempted one this year. 24,512 at the vet, making a loud noise right now. Backman is back.
And like in the first 2 ball games, the Cardinals have had a lead going into the 8th inning, but have not been able to put the Phillies away. And it continues again tonight.
One and two now. Jeff Grotwall is out on deck. To act as a pinch hitter for Barry Jones. To Dale Swaim. 1 out, 1 on, 1 in. Last of the 8th inning, the game tied 3-3. Tailing away outside, 2-2 the count. Todd Worrell having his problems again here at the Veterans Stadium. Worrell in his 24th game of the year. He's already come out and said that, and this is the last year of his contract, that Ian Lee Smith will not be in the same bullpen come next year. He was always a closer before. Oh, nice pitch.
That was a nasty, hard slider down and in. That was a pitch I thought they would try on Backman if they kept it down, but they did not. It was 90-mile-an-hour slider. Pitch starts on the inside corner and breaks down and in. Swain has no chance on it. It breaks down and in off the plate inside.
Now we're going to look at Jeff Grotwall, the pinch hitter from Madera, California, and played at the University of San Diego. 26 years of age. Jeff Grotwall, 273 this year, 3 for 11. All of his at-bats have been as a pinch hitter. Foul tip. 1-1 the count.
And there's Lee Smith. He's in the bullpen, not throwing. Lee Smith, of course, is the closer, but now it's a tie ball game, so you will not see him. As John mentioned, they probably wanted Worrell to get him through the 8th inning and then give it to Lee Smith in the 9th. Has not worked out that way.
Backman is back, 2 down.
It's tough to send Backman in this situation because if he gets thrown out, you really waste a pinch hitter. So you have to almost give Grotwall the chance to swing the bat in this situation. You know, it would have been better probably to send him before, you know, while Swain was hitting. But if you send him now and he gets thrown out, you really waste a player.
That's a foul back out of play. And the count is 0-2. Nails. Whose shoe is that? He asked. Yeah, We knew it just as soon as we saw the dirty uniform. There he is, Nails Len Dykstra. He's on deck.
That's new.
That's Nails.
That's Nails.
Well, if he gets a chance to bat, remember last night in the 8th inning, he drove in the winning runs. Worrell trying to keep him from getting a chance to do that tonight. 2 down, 2 strikes to Grotwall. Runner at first. Wally Backman ready to go in anything. And Galarraga, as sure-handed a first baseman as there is, makes the play. We're heading to the 9th inning now. Zeal, Pagnazzi, and Pena 3-3.
A wild one in Arlington. Herbeck had given the Twins a 4-3 lead. Bottom of the 8th, Juan Gonzalez has already homered twice in the game. Facing reliever Mark Guthrie, the hat trick. His 12th of the season, his 3rd of the game. The Rangers win it 5-4 on that blast. Russell saving it in the 9th. Bobby Valentine not around to see it. Back to the vet.
Wow, what a game down there in Texas. And it was the Juan Gonzalez show for sure down there.
Maybe he'll hit his 40 this year we were talking about.
Might have 40 by the end of the month. There's Bob Aralt. Young right-hander, young and huge, 6 feet 4 inches tall, 230 pounds. Born in South Lake Tahoe, California. And he went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and most likely was a teammate, at least for a while, of tonight's Cardinals starter, Donovan Osborne. Changes defensively. Mariano Duncan has moved from second base to left field for the Phillies, and a new second baseman, Wally Backman, staying in after he pinch hit for Marsh. And of course, the new pitcher is Bob Aralt. His father, maybe you remember this name. His father was a pro basketball player. Jim Aralt played for the Detroit Pistons. Do you remember him?
No.
Just said he played for them. Didn't say he played well for them.
I was probably a little younger than I hope.
You weren't a Pistons fan in those days,
No.
eh?
Television, the NBA probably wasn't all over the place either.
That's a little bit low. Aralt is making his first appearance. Scranton just 2 days ago. That's a foul tip. And it is 1 ball and 2 strikes at Scranton. He was 5-1, but with a 4.97 earned run average. He had 6 saves, 25 1/3 innings, 19 hits, 30 strikeouts. And there's his first major league strikeout, striking out Zeal, the first man he ever faces in a major league game. 3-3 the score here, top of the 9th, right after the game. Sports Center comes up to give you all of the details of that NBA Game 3, the Bulls and the Trailblazers. Can the Pirates move further ahead of the Mets? We know the answer. The Sunday Conversation with John Kruk. We saw a little bit of that conversation before the game tonight, and it is worth watching the show just for that. Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann will bring you Sports Center right after the game. Here is Tom Pagnazzi, 2 for 3. Right-handed hitter. 3-3 tie, top of the 9th. The Cardinals again unable to hold a late inning lead. 0-2 now to Pagnazzi. That's twice in this series that Worrell has had those 8th inning problems with the lead. Foul tip, strike 3.
Well, he's serious anyway. He has a little herky-jerky motion, which probably makes it very difficult for the right-hander to pick up the ball. And by the time he does, the ball's on top of him. Now, he's throwing 94 miles an hour. You pick the ball up a little late from that motion because he's throwing arms and elbows and everything else at you. And he's also 6 feet 4 or 5, right?
Yeah, 6'4". Geronimo Pena, fastball for a strike. Aralt is averaging 10.1 strikeouts per 9 innings at Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
I can understand that.
It's one of those arms a scout is always on the prowl looking for around the country. He went to junior college at Moore Park Junior College in California, and then transferred to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. South Lake Tahoe he was born in, Joe. I didn't know anybody was born there. I thought you just went there on holiday.
On vacation. Well, he has a chance to tie a Major League record here.
That's a fair ball. Jordan got a glove on it, but nothing more. John, where is that ball? There it is. Meanwhile, stopping at second was Pena. He gave up on it. John Kruk thought somebody had played a trick on him down there. He was looking under the padding for that one.
A lot of times in the late innings, you cover the line. Now, obviously, the Phillies were not doing that here. As the ball goes down the line, you guard against extra base hits in a tie ball game late in the game. Kruk is looking for it, but he's looking in the wrong place. And the fans help him out, and he finds it.
And they really helped him out by not touching the ball.
Here's Pena. He's looking over at third, so maybe the third base coach wasn't giving him all the help that he needed. Anyway, it's man at second, 2 down. But again, most teams will guard the line. We've discussed that before in a tie ball game, and obviously the Phillies were not playing it that way.
And I don't know if Bucky was waving him on or not, but Pena just said, hey, that's a double, and he just pulled up. But Kruk didn't know where the ball was. Here's Gilkey. Base hit could still mean a run. Ball 1, and Gilkey's been getting a lot of base hits. He's hitting .322. He had a real rough rookie season last year. He's a native of St. Louis. He's the hometown kid, and so far this year, he's been the hometown hero many times. No homers, 7 RBIs, .322 average. He's very fast. 2-0. On deck is the left-handed hitting Ray Lankford. That's the other side of Arolt's story at the minor league level. He was averaging about 6 walks per 9 innings. There is Lankford. He would be next.
He definitely does not seem to be throwing as hard from the stretch with a man at second base as he was before.
Too high. 3-0. You don't want to walk this right-handed hitter with the left-handed hitting Lankford coming up next. Three runs, 10 hits for the Cardinals, 1 error. 3 runs, 7 hits, 1 error for the Phillies. And he has walked Gilkey on 4 pitches. And that keeps the inning going for Ray Lankford. Hitless tonight, but with an RBI. And having a fine season. And here comes Fregosi. And he's going to make a change and go for the left-hander, Wally Ritchie, when we come back. More baseball tomorrow night. The Toronto Blue Jays, high-flying Blue Jays, enormous talent, including Roberto Alomar, one of the best in the game, meeting Danny Tartabull, the slugger, and the New York Yankees, the Bronx Bombers. Tomorrow night, 7:30. Chris Berman and Tommy Hunt will have it for you. Monday Night Baseball, that's tomorrow. Sunday Night Baseball continues now. We're in the 9th inning. We've got a tie ball game, and here is Wally Ritchie on to face the left-handed hitting Ray Lankford. 2 men on, 2 men out.
Ritchie has a pretty good little slider, and here's his strikeouts to base on balls. He's walked a lot, giving up 1 more hit than innings pitched, but in this one situation, he'll probably try to get Lankford out with a slider.
With 2 down and nobody on, Geronimo Pena doubled, and then Bernard Gilkey walked. And here is Ritchie. Ball 1. Ritchie also from Southern California, Glendale, California. He went to Brigham Young University for 1.5 semesters. 1.5 semesters.
He started Gilkey off with a slider.
Into the hole, and a nice play. Nowhere to throw it, but Swain saved a run.
Good hustle by Gilkey at first base to get to second base because the ball's hit pretty hard. Swain dives and gets it. And in a lot of cases, that's a great play because the ball's in the air. You'd have a chance to throw to second base, but Gilkey's hustling to second base got there in time.
Bases loaded. Ozzie Smith. Curveball. Too low. Ozzie batting right-handed now. He was 1 for 3 with a walk, batting left-handed tonight. Ozzie hitting only .211 so far this year, batting right-handed. Bases loaded. 2 down. 3 men on. All ready to run here at the crack of the bat. 3-3 tie. And it is 2-0.
And that's the first fastball he has thrown. He's thrown 3 straight breaking balls to Langford.
There's a strike. 2-1 now.
And that's kind of a veteran move there, just to go ahead and take one. You know, 2-0, because you figure now you got him 2-1. He has to basically give you the same pitch. You just don't want to let him get out of the inning by throwing one good strike.
Toward the middle and through, base hit center field. Coming in to score is Pena. Here comes Gilkey. He scores. Stopping at second is Langford, and Ozzie Smith, the glove man, doing it with a bat again. 2,000 and still going. And this one breaks a 3-3 ninth inning tie.
And also,
5-3.
It also breaks his bat. But on AstroTurf, if you hit the ball back through the middle, most of the time, if it gets past the pitcher, it's a base hit. Kind of hits it toward the end of the bat, but he grounds it straight back up the middle. And it's past Ritchie before he can get his glove down. Maybe that wasn't a bat I heard crack. That went through very quickly.
It was Fragosi's heart.
Yeah.
Here is Felix Jose, another switch hitter. He'll now bat right-handed. Jose hitting .389 as a right-handed hitter. Tonight, 1 for 4, and has grounded into 2 double plays as a left-handed hitter. 2 on, 2 in, 2 out. Tantalized him on that one. 1 ball, 1 strike. The base runners. There is Ray Langford, a speedster at second base, and Ozzie Smith still moves real well at first base. Ozzie, by the way, is hitting .333 this year with men in scoring position. Cardinals have 12 hits in the game now. They lead 5-3. Charge both of those runs to Bob Arold. He struck out the first 2 hitters he ever faced in a big league game, and he might get a loss in that same game. The next 2 hitters he faced have both scored. Curveball. Foul ball by Jose.
Kind of interesting, John. The Cardinals do not have Lee Smith up throwing in the bullpen. It's kind of interesting because that says that Todd Worrell may, get a chance to finish this ball game. He probably threw a little bit earlier, but if he's going to come in, he'd be up and throwing now.
The fists and out of play by Jose. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Earlier today, the Pirates defeated the Mets 3-0. Randy Tomlin with a 6-hit shutout. The Pirates will be meeting the Phillies next. The Cardinals are going home for a doubleheader with the Cubs, who were beaten in Montreal today. In the dirt, 2-2. Scored 1 in the bottom of the 9th to defeat the Cubs. Next week, we will see Cincinnati hosting the Los Angeles Dodgers. A chance, still a little early to say for sure, a chance that Orel Hershiser will pitch that game for the Dodgers. He would be due up on Tuesday, which would put him due up on Sunday. Into right center, but there is Kruk. The ball slicing right back to him. 2 in the inning. 2 runs. Phillies at the top of the order. Dykstra, Duncan, and Hollins. We'll see what happens. After the game on SportsCenter, our Sunday conversation with John Kruk.
I got drafted by the Padres, and I didn't know where San Diego was. That's the truth, too, because I didn't know. And then I got drafted, and I said, who are they? I've never heard of them. I didn't know not one player they had on their team, nothing. So I was kind of shocked. I mean, if I never heard of them or any one of their players, how would they ever know about me?
Well, maybe John Kruk will have a chance to face this fellow. Lee Smith is coming on for the St. Louis Cardinals. We never even saw him warming up.
I definitely didn't. I didn't see him warming up anyway.
Maybe he doesn't need. He hadn't pitched since May 29th. This is his first outing in 9 days. Of course, the Cardinals have lost 8 of their last 10. There haven't been many save opportunities. None at all for Lee Smith in all that time. The last time he worked was against San Diego, and he got knocked around in that ball game. He has blown saves in his last 2 save opportunities. He's not saved a game since May 17th. He has 14 saves altogether, tied for the National League lead in saves, even though he has not had one in nearly 3 weeks. Len Dykstra is in your face. I don't think they'll ever use that phrase. Here's Dykstra. He is excellent at getting on base. Tonight he's had 1 walk and is 0 for 3. He needs to get on base here to get the Phillies going. They are down by 2 runs. 5-3 the score. And he's done it. Into the alley. Left right center field. Jose cuts it off. And Dykstra content with a single. Duncan coming up. Then Hollins. And Kruk is due up 4th in the inning.
Well, Dykstra is a smart hitter. He knows that Lee Smith, like you say, hasn't pitched for a while. He also knows he's going to try to get ahead of him. So he jumps on the first fastball and lines it into right center field. There was a chance he might try for a double, but a good play by Felix Jose cut it off, and he came up ready to throw, so Dykstra wisely held up at first base.
So here is Mariano Duncan. Now, a lot of guys do not like facing Lee Smith, but Duncan has a .500 average against him. Into the hole. Ozzy's only play to second in time. He got Dykstra. I was surprised at Dykstra. Where was he?
Yeah, well, Duncan hit the ball off the end of the bat, and Ozzie Smith rounded it and then had time to get Dykstra at second base. See, the ball's not hit that sharply, but good quick reaction by Ozzie Smith, and Pena retires Duncan. Retires Dykstra. Duncan will be at first.
Now here is Dave Hollins, the young switch hitting third baseman tonight. 1 for 4. 5-3. Cardinals ahead. Last of the 9th inning. Ball 1 from Lee Smith.
Lee Smith's throwing 93 miles an hour. That's 5 miles an hour slower than we had the fastest of Todd Worrell's.
And it is 1 ball and 1 strike now to Hollins. John Kruk, the Major League's leading hitter, is on deck, and he is hitless tonight. And there he is. If he can bat, he'll have a chance to be the tying run of the game, at least. Hollins gets aboard. Kruk would be the possible go-ahead run. And it is 2-1. Now, Lee Smith is a guy throughout his career, Joe. He's used to working 2 days in a row, 4 days out of 5, 4 or 5 days a week. He has not worked in, what, 9 or 10 days.
Well, as you mentioned, the Cardinals have not given him the opportunity to save a game in that time, losing, 8 out of 10. But also, it might have been a situation where Joe Torre just wanted to give him some rest because he had been struggling a little bit. Because you can always work him in an inning here or inning there, but
slider in the dirt, and now it is 3-1 to Hollins.
But I'm sure that Joe Torre just wanted to give him a little, breather there. Andres Galarraga went in and talked to him. The reason that's interesting is because we always think of Ozzie Smith as the leader of the infield. John Kruk on deck.
Galarraga back to first. He's playing behind Duncan, not bothering to hold him on over there. It's a walk. This one is not over just yet. Here is the leading hitter in all of baseball, John Kruk, but he is hitless tonight. And Kruk has never had a hit against Lee Smith. Look at that, 0 for 10, and 4 of those 10 at-bats he has struck out.
So this does not seem to be the Lee Smith that he has been facing in the past.
And this is not the John Kruk that Smith has faced in the past either.
Right, so throw all those things out the window. Joe Coleman's going out to talk to Lee and just see if he feels okay and see if he, you know, if anything is wrong or if he's just...
As long as it's been since Smith has worked in a game, maybe Coleman is introducing himself. Hi, Lee, I'm Joe Coleman, pitching coach. Lee Smith, he's one of the greats. He's right up there in the all-time list of saves, back of Rollie Fingers, Jeff Reardon. You'll find Lee Smith's name up there amongst them.
I expect the way that Lee Smith is throwing now that he will probably try to stay away from Kruk, not give him something inside that he can jerk over out of the ballpark. If he comes inside, probably be a slider.
Has not hit the ball out of the infield so far tonight.
And he does stay away from good fastball from Lee Smith outside corner. And Kruk tries to pull it, 93-mile-an-hour fastball. And I expect Lee Smith to stay out there, and Kruk's going to probably have to go the other way.
And Kruk hits well the other way.
Right. But he probably won't go until he gets 2 strikes.
The outfield very deep. He does stay away just as you predicted, but a ball, 1 strike. You see the Cardinal defense with Ozzie Smith at second, Ozzie at short and Pena at second, both toward the middle a bit. And the outfield is very deep and shaded toward left field. Duncan at second, Hollins at first. Hollins is the possible tying run.
Breaking ball. He stays away from him. The best pitch to throw is the fastball away if you're Lee Smith right now. Just stay with it because you're less likely to make a mistake with it. If you hang a breaking ball inside, Kruk can pull the ball over right field wall. But if you stay away from him with your good fastball, chances are he's going to hit the ball to the deepest part of the ballpark.
Kruk's average now at 378. 0 for 4 tonight. 2-1 the count. 2-2.
And you see where Kruk ended up. He went out after that pitch because he has been able to stay away from him. This is a little faster. It's 94 miles an hour. Now watch the position of the ball. Away. Kruk goes out after it, trying to pull it. That's not John Kruk's normal way of hitting. So he is trying to do something special for the team right now. But now with 2 strikes, I believe he'll just try to go with the pitch or maybe back through the middle. And this may be an opportunity if you got confidence in your slider, the time for Lee Smith to throw the slider down the end. But again, he hasn't pitched for a while, so he may want to just stay away.
He struck him out, staying away. A foul tip. Kruk goes 0 for 5, one of his worst nights of the year.
The longest he had gone was 0 for 6 before. He got a good start on that tonight. Good pitching by Lee Smith. Not only is he throwing 94 miles an hour, the ball is also moving. This ball, see the ball is there on the inside corner, and it moves toward the outside part of the plate. Good pitching. Watch where this pitch ends up. Right on the outside edge. Good pitching by Lee Smith.
2 down, 2 on. The batter, Ricky Jordan. If he can keep it going, then Darren Daulton, another red hot Phillies hitter, would get a shot. Daulton on deck, but 2 men are gone. Ooh. There's nobody to catch up with that gas right now.
Well, Kruk is very upset, as you can see in the dugout. He threw his bat before. Now he's trying to tear his batting gloves off. And Lee Smith seems to be heating to the task. That's 95-mile-an-hour heat he threw there. He's gone from 92 to 93 to 94, now 95. So he's loose. Maybe the 9-day layoff cost him a couple of miles an hour. Another good fastball.
Well, he's overmatching Jordan.
Well, he overmatched Kruk, too, by staying away. And he's staying away from Jordan as well. His fastball on the outside corner. I mean, that's right on the edge out there. 95 mile an hour again. So we'll see if he just stays out there. No balls and 2 strikes.
Jordan doubled his last time against Worrell, who was throwing real hard. Into right. It's going to fall, base hit. Rounding third is Duncan. He scores. Over to third goes Hollins. And Jordan with the big hit. It's 5-4. And now Darren Daulton, who is red hot, is coming up.
You know, it's very easy for me to sit here and watch and make a discovery. Watch Lee Smith. For some reason, he drops down sidearm to throw this pitch to Jordan. Now, he's been throwing the fastball away. And watch, he drops down. This is a sidearm fastball, which is not his best pitch, which is also in the middle of the plate. He had thrown over the top fastballs on the outside edge. Jordan hadn't even come close to touching him. So he drops down, which takes a little bit off your fastball, and he puts it in the middle of the plate.
Now Darren Daulton, and he is tied for the league lead in RBIs. 2 RBIs tonight with a home run. On the outside.
Now he goes right back to the outside corner with Daulton. Obviously, the pitch was a mistake to Jordan. He wanted to try to get that away, too, but there's no reason for him to drop down in that situation when he was overmatching Jordan.
Now, we saw Joe Torre signal out to Tom Pagnazzi something, and Pagnazzi stepped out in front of the plate and signaled to Smith and maybe his infielders.
Well, what the signal was is if Ricky Jordan goes from first base, what they're going to do with it. He's going to try to throw a slide. He's going to throw him a breaking ball here. Oh, the sinker down away.
1 ball, 1 strike. There you see Daulton with only 1 hit in his career. It was a home run. Most of the time against Smith in the past, he has struck out. But that was the old Darren Daulton.
Right.
He's doing a lot of things now he's never done before. 1-1. 5-4 the score. High fly ball. This should do it. Gilkey. And the Cardinals have won it. Their losing streak ends at 5. And they avoid the sweep at the hands of the Phillies, winning it 5-4.
Well, the Cardinals used their speed to win this ball game, and their defense and their pitching. That's what won it for them.
Lee Smith with his 15th save, number 327 lifetime. We'll see you next Sunday night from Cincinnati. The Dodgers, Brett Butler and company, maybe Hershiser, and the Cincinnati Reds, Barry Larkin and company. 8 o'clock next Sunday night from Riverfront Stadium. 0 for 5 for John Kruk. He still can't believe it. The Phillies are beaten tonight. Stay tuned. SportsCenter comes up. Now, this is John Miller for Joe Morgan, thanking you for joining us now from Philadelphia. Good night, everyone.